Hello everybody. I don't even know how I'm gonna title this video, but most of the people who watch this channel are into self-defense and also traditional martial arts, and I think one of the most valuable things you can have is real world information. Alright, and it's based on anecdotes. I know that there are some studies of self-defense altercations out there. That's cool. I just know what I know because I did what I did, often because I had to, didn't want to. I certainly didn't win every fight. And I think it occurred to me today, I was watching, I think it was, what is his name? He's a Sifu in England. He's got a British accent, bald head. He's an Afro-Anglo gentleman. And he puts out a lot of good information, and he's got a really positive attitude. If you haven't noticed, at one point in all my videos, when the video began, I would smile at the camera, and I noticed he did that, and it just made the audience connect. So I started doing that. It's a way of connecting with my audience, right? Gives a lot of tips on self-defense and fighting. So as I'm watching the video, and it was on, I think, 6 myths that young people believe about self-defense, it occurred to me there are 2 very overwhelming important factors in my life that have enabled me thus far, knock on plastic, to be, relatively unscathed. I mean, I've got a broken nose, and I've gotten a lot of dings. I've had my bell rung, but I've never been truly knocked out, and I've been subjected to violence, and I've had to deal some violence, right? But I think these 2 factors are probably key to understanding some of the anecdotes that I've said in other videos, and maybe helping you decide what in your self-defense training you might want to do or not do, and thinking about incidences that you've been involved in. And if you've never been involved in an incident, then cool. I mean, Chuck Sullivan, who's 91 years old, said in the Viking Samurai interview he's never had to use his art once. I wish I was that lucky. but this is a face that a lot of people like to punch. So, factor number 1, I never fought a truly competent fighter that both wanted to hurt me and knew how. Now, mind you, the people I fought were fighters. For example, I fought a couple of people that had a wrestling background. They were very competent at wrestling, and they were able to take me down, but they truly didn't know how to hurt me. They didn't know how to get on top and mount soon enough, fast enough to stop me from, for example, grabbing their testicles and wiggling free, and then even while lying on my side, knee them in the face. That's something I did once, right? Oftentimes I would wind up grabbing a testicle and sometimes a throat or an eyeball, or progress from one to the other in sort of like a fashion, right? A progression, right? For example, someone who truly knows how to hurt you and has a wrestling background should slam you down on the ground, grab your head, and smash your head repeatedly, especially the back of your head, into the ground. If you have hair, that's easier. Or, they can easily gouge out your eyes or pin your face in place and use the canine teeth, not the incisors, to sort of dig into your jugular vein and rip it out, and you'll bleed out, right? They can also sort of tilt your head back and hit you with that. These are dangerous, injury-causing or death-causing things. Nobody that ever took me down knew that that was a possibility, or if they did, wanted to do that. They wanted to often just take me down because it was an impulse. They would just figure it out when they got there, or probably they just wanted to ground and pound you, which that takes a lot of effort to really injure someone. I'm not kidding. I'm not being facetious here. If someone is on the ground, turtled up, and you're bashing away, you've got to throw many punches. You've got to reposition. You've got to be uber competent at striking from the mount, and in order to cause a true injury, like a broken jaw, debilitation, a fatality, you might have to throw 10, 20 punches, and you may break your hand, right? Whereas if you, for example, know Kung Fu and know how to do a double leg and ground and pound, you will take someone down and with the least of effort, go into the inner canthus, dig in and then out, and I don't care what Boss Rudin says, you're gonna hurt that eyeball, right? You can grab an Adam's apple and pinch grip it and crush it. That's how people die. So I've had another situation where I had to fight two people and they were beating me pretty bad, right? One guy held me in a headlock and started punching me, and then would secure me while his friend started punching me, and they would punch me in the face and in the back of the head and sides of the head and face, which again, if you have a 2-to-1 advantage and you've got someone locked in a headlock, you're both standing, and you waste a bunch of time like just throwing punches to the hardest part of the anatomy, you have a lot of power, you have competency, you obtained a superior tactical position and 2-to-1 advantage, but you just did not understand how to injure someone, right? So, I mean, if you truly wanted to injure someone, you can twist that neck. That neck can be twisted and broken or severely damaged. While one person holds, the other person can strike the kidneys. They can start kicking the knees from the side and tear the cartilage. They can effect a takedown and do all the things I talked about, what you do when you take someone down. They had competency and they had intent. They wanted to truly hurt me. They actually didn't know how to hurt someone, as in permanently injure, break, maim, or kill. I fought one person who knew and wanted to hurt me, had an idea of how to hurt me, like permanently injure me, and did not have the competency, which was, I talked about a fight I got in, I believe I was a sophomore in high school. That was 1985, right? And his opening move was to try and kick me in the groin, and I moved back and, sort of in a sideways stance, and then he threw a hook punch. He had tried to kick me with his right leg and a sort of a kind of like a rising kick to my groin, and it just barely backed up enough. But by me backing up, I gave him room to throw his right hand. So he had some competency. Most people, if they were to throw a kick, they load up with their power side. He was able to smoothly transition from a groin kick to a front hand hook punch, and I dealt with it by sort of just leaning back, and it grazed, and then I came back with a knife hand, and it stopped him cold. It had him in the solar plexus. He just froze in place, and he couldn't breathe, he couldn't fall, he couldn't stand. It was eerie. I thought I was going to kill him. And I actually did kind of like a Heimlich maneuver to get some air back in his lungs. So he knew how to injure me. He didn't have the ability, and just barely did I not get hit. I think if he would have connected with that kick, he would have dropped me, to be fair. So he was close. I've had other fights, spontaneous aggression. I've had a lot of punches thrown at my face, because when you're angry and you're not conditioned or trained to injure people, as in seriously injure them, you punch at the face. It's like an emotional reaction. You want to shut that face up. You want to dominate. It's a form of dominance. But honestly, punching someone in the face with a bare knuckle on the street, it often just doesn't yield the kind of results you think it does. Most people severely overestimate their ability to throw that one-punch man punch. All right? And if you do have the power to throw that one-punch man punch, they often throw it at the offending organ. They throw it at the mouth. And, they'll throw it at the eyes, because they don't like looking at the person's eyes, and they often snap those knuckles, right? I have been in fights where I intended to hurt people, and my opening move has been a strike to the groin, or that's often a lot of my opening moves are like that, right? And when I've thrown punches directly at the nose, which is the soft part of the nose, forward and upward with a Wing Chun vertical fist. I've done that multiple times in actual fights, and it tends to it can stop a fight without knocking a person out, because the concussion is really bad. They step back and they start bleeding, and it oftentimes interferes with their breathing, and the aggression is moderated by the difficulty breathing and the gargling sound of that blood, right? I've even lightly popped people in the throat. I'll give you an example. I had an example of heterosexual sexual harassment. You're like, what the hell is that? Okay, I knew a guy. This time I was in my 20s, and this was the 1990s, and I had been out of the Marine Corps a few years, and I had made some new friends. Two people in my friend group were also ex-jarheads, and most were not, right? And they had all gotten involved in martial arts because of me. I was teaching in a friend's backyard. She let me use her backyard. And we were at another friend's house. He was living with his mom up in the Princeton Hills, and they had a nice house, and they had a pool, and we were hanging out by the pool. My friend Paul is, I don't know, he has a lot of issues. We're not really friends anymore, and if he wants to be friends again, the answer is no. But he's like kind of one of those real conservative, uber Republican guys who's always complaining about how oppressed he is as a white man because, he can't, make all the jokes he wants to make and, call women cunts and bitches. And, he's got issues, right? So we're hanging out at this pool. And like many of my friends, my eyes are about level with dude's chest, right, or neck. And, I'm hanging out in shorts. It's a summer day. There's a pool. I got my flip-flops on. I've been in the water a bit. I got out. I'm chilling. I get up to move, and he walks up in front of me, kind of sticking his chest out. And I'm like, all right, dude, can you move? So I didn't feel like moving around him, So he starts gyrating, like he's gay or something, right? I don't know. You guys must have seen this. It is definitely a white guy thing. There's a lot of white guys out there who sort of will act gay in front of you and tease you and sort of, I call it white guy sexual harassment. White heterosexual guy sexual harassment. It's a phenomenon I've seen, and it's a form of teasing and domination. And you're either supposed to act gay back, and then you all have a laugh about it, or you get mad about it, and then they get to make fun of you for losing your cool. And I told him, I said, stop it. That was my face. And he sort of intensified, so I was just like, I'm not taking this bullshit anymore. My hand came up in a nukete and popped him very lightly in the throat. Hard enough that I think there was about this much penetration into the cricoid cartilage, deflecting it, and fast enough that it would be painful, not so fast, so sharp, that I would injure him. But believe me, it's an uncomfortable thing to have done to you. And he gets mad. He's like, why'd you fucking do that? And I'm like, I told you, stop. Now will you move out of the way? Will you move out of the way? And he did, and he was just kind of mad the rest of the day, and it put a bit of a pall over the pool party. All right, but if I'm threatened, I often fight to injure. I revert back to hitting what I consider injurious points. I have attacked people in the testicles, the throat. I have put my fingers in people's eyes and taken short of injury, but caused enough pain that they don't they don't want to continue what they're doing. And I've said some very horrible verbal things to people that induced fear so that I didn't have to escalate physically, but I was ready to. And I believe that's because at early childhood I've been abused by people. I've been abused by my parents. I've been abused by an older brother. I've been subjected to a lot of violence, and once I discovered that there were potential off switches for violence, I made that my default mode, and that means, that maybe I've overstepped it a few times, but I've lived in the world I've had to, and it's a weird world for some of you. Some of you have never had to, like I've had to. And it's not just all the things I've had to do. There have been times when I didn't know enough or when I was helpless and I had to endure. Had to endure physical violence. I had to endure mental violence. It's a form of PTSD. All right? Let alone serving in the military. Let alone going to war. Let alone any number of things that can happen in life. Seeing friends and loved ones die. Right? But I guess I have been lucky that I have never really fought anyone who both had the knowledge, the skill, the ability, and the intent to severely injure me. I think that if all of the times that I had been involved in violence, and oftentimes these were people much bigger than me, much stronger than me, if they truly knew how to get at someone's eye, how to get at someone's throat, how to attack the spine, how to attack the internal organs, the floating ribs, the kneecaps, the kidneys, that I would not be here, or I would be possibly dying early from having been in a wheelchair and life support system all my life, or the recipient of some miraculous new, surgical procedure, right? Because all of these attackers attack me with maximum force and maximum intent. Force and intent that if married with, let's say, if you had the ability to do what Kung Fu Sansu advocates doing to the human body, right? If that force had been paired with that, I would have surely died. All right? If you had low-level Golden Gloves boxer, a Golden Gloves boxer who never made it to the top, but who had the ability to get to the Golden Gloves and go past one round of competition, if you were to match that with Sansu level application of violence, match that with, American Kenpo level targeting, if you were to match that with, some of the Goju-Ryu applications, right, you would have killed people. You'd probably be in jail, all right? So it is something to think about. There's force, there's intent, but then there is violence and injury. And then there is competence and ability to deliver violence and injury. It's what most people think of as injury. A broken nose is kind of nothing compared to injuring the cricoid cartilage. All right? Having the wind knocked out of you isn't the same as a punch or kick breaking your jaw. On one side, let alone both sides, which happens sometimes to people in the world, right? So, and then there is ease of injury. You can kill someone with boxing. Take the gloves off, you can injure yourself doing so, but it takes effort. It takes quite a bit of effort, repetition of punches, and timing. Whereas if I take someone with an an amateur boxer's level of striking skill and accuracy and put, two pencils in his hand and just tell him stab and jab. I mean, it doesn't take much time at all, right? So understand that this is why I value the martial arts that I do, and why I focused more or less on certain things than others, and why like I said, I want to come back out and start competing again. But that's just to work on aspects of the martial arts that weren't so important across my career. All right, now I can focus on this while my body is physically capable of doing that sort of we would call external martial art. All right, thank you.